Our text today is from Luke chapter 20, verses 1 through 8. One day, as Jesus was teaching the people in the temple and telling the good news, the chief priests and the scribes came with the elders and said to him, "Tell us, by what authority are you doing these things? Who is it who gave you this authority?" Jesus answered them, "I will also ask you a question and you tell me. Did the baptism of John come from heaven, or was it of human origin?" They discussed it with one another, saying, "If we say from heaven, he will say, 'Why did you not believe him?' But if we say of human origin, all the people will stone us, for they are convinced that John was a prophet." So they answered that they did not know where it came from. Then Jesus said to them, "Neither will I tell you by what authority I am doing these things." I don't know how to read this story. I've been back and forth every which way on this all week, identifying with different characters, hearing each of their voices differently, playing with the tone of the conversations. For a while, I was totally with Jesus, and I thought that these scribes and the chief priests were being annoying upstarts who were just trying to trap him. I was so proud of the way that Jesus showed them up and shut them down. But then, and front row people move back a little bit in case I get hit by a lightning bolt by this one, but I got a little upset with Jesus. It seemed like he was overreacting. I love a snarky Jesus and all, don't get me wrong, just listen to my last sermon. But the more that I read around the story, the more that I got the full picture, he seemed unreasonably angry, like he was just trying to pick a fight. I'm just saying, it's not surprising that a couple days later, these people set out to kill him. So I had a hard time knowing what to say to you about this text. With this much ambiguity, with all of these personal conflicts, with so much at stake. And then I realized something terribly important. This is not an ancient story that I'm trying to recreate. This is a story that we live moment to moment, in big and small ways, every day. We find ourselves on all sides of it. I don't know exactly what the story is about, but I know it's our own story too. So let's take a deep breath and really read this story with all of its tensions and all of our unknowing, and not worry about where it's going, because I don't know for sure. As far as I can tell, this story, squarely in the middle of heated arguments and a long series of clashing and conflicting viewpoints, happens in 4 parts: question, question, deliberation, and answer. It starts with a question. Well, actually, it starts with business as usual for Jesus, which is teaching in the temple and telling the good news. And after he's been out and about, traveling all over the country, preaching from mountains and boats and strangers' living rooms, it must be nice to be back in the temple. Finally, he gets the home court advantage. But then the other home team shows up and is a little upset. The chief priests and the scribes and the elders are feeling like he's encroaching on their territory, so they decide to ask a question. "Tell us, by what authority are you doing these things? Who is it who gave you this authority?" Now maybe they're thinking they're pretty slick here. Tell us, by what authority are you doing these things? Because whoever Jesus cites as his teacher or boss is destined to be lower on the totem pole than these chief priests. Or maybe they're concerned and upset. Tell us, by what authority are you doing these things? This man is speaking to their people, and I'm betting that if a random person showed up at Trinity and started trying to get you guys to join his new spiritual movement, which we might consider a cult, Dan or I or one of you would probably wander over, be like, hey, so where'd you go to seminary? What's your deal? I don't know. I don't know their intentions here, but I will give them this. They went right to the source. As for us, when we have questions, when we struggle with trusting Jesus and wondering what this is all about and where it's all coming from, do we go to Jesus first thing? Do we engage and start asking? Are we willing to speak up from our unknowing? I completely understand the impulse to question our faith, to check things out for ourselves, and I would even go so far as to say that it's vital to a vibrant spirituality. Questions are good. I don't know, I think so. In fact, if I had to choose between having good questions and having good answers, I'd go with good questions. And, frustratingly, Jesus does not give them a straight answer. Has that ever happened to you? Am I alone on this? And so to this seemingly easy question, Jesus sort of goes the Jeopardy route and answers with his own question, part 2 of the story. And while Jesus is pretty indirect in his answer, he's not evasive. I don't know what his tone of voice was like. Was he sharp and biting? I will also ask you a question and you answer me. Did the baptism of John come from heaven or was it from man? Or was he outsmarting them? I will also ask a question and you tell me. Did the baptism of John come from heaven or was it of human origin? Or was he being sweet and offering a broader point of view? I will also ask you a question and you tell me. Did the baptism of John come from heaven or was it of human origin? I don't know. I do know that this was not at all what the askers were expecting. Jesus threw them a total curveball. They were expecting a name, maybe some old famous rabbi or a new progressive one, but they were totally thinking the answer would just be a person they would be able to trump. So when Jesus introduces this element of heaven, they have no idea what to do. When does this happen to us? My hope is that all of us could point to a time when Jesus offered us way more than we expected, when Jesus redirected our questions or our perspective so that we would begin to grasp what is really going on, what is really important. But it doesn't always feel helpful, and honestly, it doesn't always feel like it happens. Sometimes our questions are just met with puzzling new challenges that take us further into unknowing. One question leading to another, and wondering how the heck they're connected and wishing desperately for a clean answer. Come on, Jesus, couldn't you just give us a straight answer? I don't know. The third part of this story is their deliberation. Jesus has kind of hit below the belt here, and they don't know what to do. His question challenges them, and they realize how precarious their situation has become now. Whatever they say may have dangerous implications. I don't know the tone of their reflections. Were they confused, upset, frustrated? We see them weigh their options, but they quickly see that they're in a lose-lose situation. Either they have to change their hearts and admit this heaven thing is legit, or they have to risk the wrath of the people. They face the fact that our actions, our answers, have a lot at stake. There are major implications for our image and our identity. I am sure this happens to us because I saw it happen this week. You might have heard this story too. The organization World Vision, through long, intentional, thoughtful deliberation, had decided to permit gay Christians in legal same-sex marriages to be employed in their organization. In essence, they decided to comply with the new Washington state laws that recognize gay marriage, since their headquarters are in Seattle. World Vision's president, Richard Stearns, said it was symbolic not of compromise, but of Christian unity. And he hoped that it would inspire unity elsewhere among Christians. That was on Monday. By Wednesday, they had lost over 2,000 sponsors, had been attacked by countless prominent evangelical leaders, and ultimately decided to reverse their decision and rescind their new policy. I can't tell you how much this simultaneously broke my heart and ignited my anger. I understand that at the end of the day, World Vision is grieving. But I can just hear the deliberation behind those closed doors. Do we stick with what we believe, even if some of our people will be upset? Or do we give them what they want? Yes, they were stuck between a rock and a hard place. So I understand the position of the deliberators in today's story, and I suspect you've been there too. Asking tough questions and making tough deliberations are part of this journey we're on. There are major implications for the ways that we choose to live our life and the people and opinions we choose to value. Our questions should push us into reflection and should challenge us to live with authenticity, integrity, and vulnerability, even if our deliberations don't yield solid answers. The final word of the story is their answer, or maybe more accurately, their admission. They say that they do not know. Were they being coy? We don't know. Were they angrily resigned? We don't know. Were they genuinely stumped? We don't know. I don't know. I don't know what they sounded like. What I do know is that it takes a lot of bravery to honestly admit when we aren't sure. And maybe that's not at all what they were doing here, but I think it's something we can learn from them regardless. I find myself this week in the place of these people at the end of the story. I come before you hands open saying, I don't know. I don't know what tone of voice they used. I don't know exactly what this has to offer you. I don't know the moral of the story here. I don't know how this is good news. I don't know where the blessing is. I don't know. And I don't know that preachers say that honestly to you enough. And I don't know that you say that in your own life with full vulnerability and honesty enough. That you are willing to surrender to the mystery, to be open to possibility, to let go of the idea of control that comes from knowing and understanding. But this unknowing is not the end of the story, and I hope you hear me say this too. Don't walk away. Just because you're worn out, confused, questioning, feeling helpless, admitting total unknowing, there will be other chances. This is one short story in a much longer book. The scribes and the chief priests get lots more chances to face Jesus. Jesus does not disappear. Jesus does not give up. Jesus may not have given you the straightforward answer you expected, but he has not left you. You will see him again. You will keep running into him because he keeps going out of his way to run into you. I do know that. So after a story with so many twists and turns, a story that is hard to make sense of and one that we are still living today, one that leaves us with mixed emotions and a lot of unknowing, I want to close at least with this. There is one other place in Luke where we hear, they did not know, and it is from Jesus. Fitted to the cross, arms open in embrace, abandoned to being nothing but vulnerable and honest. And it is here that Jesus says, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. And I don't know for sure about Jesus' tone in the text today, but I'm willing to bet that here on the cross, he did not say this through gritted teeth and furrowed brow. Instead, he says, I know it's a lot to handle. I know you're doing the best you can right now. And it's okay. You're okay. You just don't know yet. These words of his, this proclamation from the cross, is an eternally valid utterance. Because I think a large part of the point is that it's a mystery. An infuriating mystery a lot of the time. But maybe being able to say, I don't know, is not only the most honest, but the most faithful thing we can do. And Jesus, in the end, holds our unknowing with so much affection and sweetness that it's okay. I don't know for sure. That's just what I think for now.